In the fall of 1996, as the smoke from Bash at the Beach still lingered and the foundations of World Championship Wrestling began to tremble under the boots of the New World Order, WCW Magazine Issue 20 opened not with celebration, but with accusation, an editorial declaration of war from Colin Bowman himself. The editor's column read like a courtroom verdict, his tone furious and resolute, naming names, pointing fingers, and warning that the disease of betrayal had spread beyond the ring and into the heart of WCW. Treachery is an ugly word, Bowman began, but in WCW it is a reality. The infection, he wrote, started with one man, Hollywood Hogan, the once beloved hero who shattered the faith of millions when he turned his back on the fans, on the locker room, and on the spirit of competition. From then on, Bowman continued, it has spread. He described how whispers of disloyalty filled the corridors backstage, how crew members talked openly of defecting to the NWO, and how some wrestlers' loyalty was suddenly in doubt. The Nasty Boys were mentioned in hushed tones, but none drew Bowman's wrath quite like referee Nick Patrick. For years, Patrick had been considered a man of integrity, the steady official who called it down the middle. But Bowman shredded that image to pieces. He described, in meticulous detail, Patrick's suspicious actions at Hog Wild, where he claimed to see the referee deliberately take out Lex Luger's leg. When confronted, Patrick brushed it off as a dazed mistake. Then came Nitro, where Bowman alleged Patrick signaled for Hogan to enter and assault Randy Savage, only to claim he was calling for a stretcher. Moments later, in a tag match between the Outsiders and Sting and Luger, Patrick ignored blatant cheating, even pulling Hall out of harm's way. His excuse? Hall had grabbed his arm. To the editor, this was no misunderstanding. Nick Patrick, Bowman wrote with the fury of a betrayed believer. You are a double-dealing cheat. He dared Patrick to sue him, knowing he wouldn't, because the truth was plain for all to see. Bowman's rage boiled over into prophecy. He predicted that by the time the issue hit stands, Patrick would be unmasked as the Slimeball. He was and banished from WCW forever. But after every condemnation, there was a glimmer of defiance. Bowman ended not in despair, but in unity. Hail to the Giant and the Four Horsemen, he declared, praising the rule breakers who had chosen for once to fight for WCW's soul. In the editor's words, the call to arms was clear. United, we can overcome the threat and return WCW to a semblance of normality. From there, the issue roared into its first feature. Out and About in Sturgis, a vivid, roaring, diesel-scented chronicle of WCW's boldest experiment yet, Hog Wild. Forget the arenas, forget the glitz of pay-per-view lighting. This was the open road, the thunder of engines, and the rumble of rebellion set against the backdrop of the Black Hills. The small town of Sturgis, South Dakota, normally quiet and unassuming, nestled near Mount Rushmore, had once again transformed into the mecca of motorcycle culture, the annual home to over 250,000 bikers from around the world. But this year, 1996, was different. This year, wrestling came to the rally. The piece unfolds like a travel diary, written in gasoline and sweat. WCW's Harley-owning faithful, Sting, Madusa, the Steiner brothers, Paul Orndorff, and Vice President Nick Lambros, mounted their bikes and formed a cross-country convoy of pure attitude. They were joined by Big Bubba, Diamond Dallas Page, and Steve and Deborah McMichael, transforming the journey into a rolling symbol of WCW's fight for its own identity. 4 days they rode, roaring across the heart of America, until Main Street Sturgis came alive with the sound of thunder and applause as the convoy rolled into town. But once they arrived, camaraderie gave way to chaos. Big Bubba peeled off to rejoin the Dungeon of Doom. DDP decided that the road life was a bit too rough for his tastes, while the McMichaels escaped to Deadwood to style and profile with their fellow horsemen. Only Sting and Madusa remained in the public eye, making appearances, signing autographs, shaking hands, and representing the WCW that fans still believe in. Madusa, in particular, became a sensation. Her presence at the Harley-Davidson show in Rapid City, drawing admiring crowds as she posed with bikes, hair blowing, pink leathers gleaming in the Dakota sun. Then came the day of the show. The giant rolled into the arena on the biggest custom Harley of them all. A monstrous machine that stole every gaze and drew gasps from the crowd. Around the ring, thousands of bikers parked their motorcycles in a tight circle, their bikes forming the seats, their throttles the applause. When the matches began, there were no chants, no hand claps, only engines revving in unison. The sound of horsepower replacing the roar of fans. It was, as the article described, the most amazing thing that this reporter had ever witnessed. 5 hours of action later, as the sun dipped behind the hills, WCW had done the impossible, merged wrestling with biker culture, and the decision was made on the spot. Hog Wild would become an annual tradition, forever linked to the Sturgis Rally. Keep your eyes open, the story concluded, as the WCW chapter of Bikers may come riding through your town. The issue then takes a breath, but only just, as the next section recounts the matches themselves, transforming reportage into blow-by-blow narrative. The breakup of Fire and Ice becomes a tragedy of muscle and pride. Scott Norton and Ice Train, once a team of brute strength, now found themselves on opposite sides of the ring. The magazine describes the moment like the end of a friendship. Nobody can understand the reason why these two great athletes split up, it laments, noting Ice Train's still injured shoulder from a previous attack by the Giant. Norton, with ruthless focus, went straight for the weakness. Ice Train fought back with heart, his brief comeback drawing the crowd, but Norton's assault was relentless, a man possessed. When he locked in the reverse armbar, the referee stopped the fight, saving Ice Train from permanent damage. A brave effort, the piece closes, but a painful lesson in loyalty. Then, the sound of a pink Harley revving once more. Madusa enters the spotlight. Her bout with Bull Nakano, accompanied by the cunning Sonny Uno, was billed as beauty versus brutality, and the feature recounts it with cinematic intensity. As Madusa rolled down the ramp on her pink Harley, the Sturgis crowd erupted, the only female competitor in a sea of leather and steel. But her moment of triumph turned instantly violent as Nakano grabbed her by the hair and threw her across the ring, sending a hush through the crowd. Nakano, powerful and merciless, dominated the match, executing a perfect German suplex that should have ended it, except for a twist of fate. The referee counted 3, but saw Madusa's shoulder twitch upward, while Nakano's both remained down. Madusa was declared the winner. Uno, unaware of the decision, grabbed a sledgehammer and attempted to smash Madusa's Harley in a fit of rage, the scene dissolving into chaos as fans screamed for order. It was a moment that defined Madusa's legend, toughness, defiance, and pure spectacle, and the story captures it in every detail. The section ends by stepping back, almost in awe of WCW's evolution. Consider the past 18 months, the writer urges, listing off innovations that have reshaped wrestling's landscape. A live 2-hour show every Monday, a pay-per-view on the beach, a 60-man battle royal across 3 rings, and a 3-story quadruple cage. In that context, the insanity of Sturgis feels inevitable. The next logical step in a company constantly redefining spectacle. This great event, the article concludes, provided the spectacular setting for the most important night in the history of World Championship Wrestling. A night when the very survival of the promotion would be at stake. Then the spotlight shifts to the executive suite. From the top by Eric Bischoff reads like a CEO address delivered with the urgency of war. He frames the NWO as both disease and motivation, praising WCW for risk and originality, and reminding readers that unlike them, WCW dares to evolve. He imagines a WCW dream team of Giant, Savage, Flair, and Luger, ready to defend the flag, and issues a blunt warning to potential traitors. If you're even thinking about joining the NWO, goodbye, good luck, and good riddance. Blood Runs Cold arrives in a blizzard of blue light, introducing Glacier to fans as a modern myth. It describes his kata forms, armor, and the fusion of martial arts discipline and American spectacle. Glacier is presented as justice incarnate, born of ice to restore balance in a world gone mad. The article's language is half samurai legend, half press release, a preview of the cinematic direction WCW was about to embrace. Still on Top celebrates the Four Horsemen as eternal. Flair's swagger, Arn's authority, Benoit's precision, Mongo's bruising energy. Quotes spill with arrogance and unity. Flair calling them the only dynasty that matters. Arn promising pain for the NWO. Mongo boasting that he'll trade rings for blood. The Horsemen stand as WCW's last unbroken banner. Genesis, The Dungeon is Reborn, lets Kevin Sullivan rant like a mad prophet. He details alliances, plots, and the return of his dark army. With Jimmy Hart at his side and the giant monsters of Meng and Barbarian lurking, he swears the dungeon will rise again to consume those who betrayed it. Underrated. Why? Serves as the issue's undercard love letter, defending Alex Wright. Jim Duggan and Psychosis as wrestlers who deserve spotlight. It calls out fans for focusing on politics instead of ability, and predicts that today's mid-card heroes will one day carry the company. Then comes Kevin Sullivan's second manifesto, My Dungeon We Doom. Written in first person, it reads like a confession from a cellar. He accuses Chris Benoit of stealing his soul and woman's heart, and vows to break him in the ring. His tone is biblical, his imagery macabre. The Taskmaster is half philosopher, half executioner, and the reader can almost hear the chant of his dungeon followers. The Right Stuff lightens the mood again. Alex Wright's column about youth, training, and resilience. He talks about listening to veterans and learning from defeat, about being the future of Europe in WCW. It reads like the voice of a generation caught between respect and rebellion. Larry Z sees Zbyszko ruminating on golf, chess, and the art of control. He frames the NWO as impatient children, and himself as the teacher who's been through every war. He writes that real champions win by outthinking their opponents, not out-screaming them. Masters of the Suplex breaks down the move itself as a language of violence. Benoit, Malenko, and the Steiners each get paragraphs praising their variations, from the release German to the bridging belly-to-belly, illustrated with freeze-frame photos and momentum arrows. In the end, it says a suplex is truth, gravity never lies. Expert assessment. DDP studies Diamond Dallas Page like a science project. His fitness, his drive, his precision timing on the diamond cutter. Everything analyzed by WCW's experts. They credit his unlikely rise from manager to main event threat as proof that hunger beats pedigree. Page's quote ends it. Success doesn't just happen, it's created. The closing shot is the Regal decree, Lord Stephen Regal's high society column of insults. He calls American fans uncultured peasants, mocks Bischoff's hair, and insists that one day proper English manners will return to WCW when he wears championship gold again. You may call it arrogance, he writes. I call it breeding. The magazine fades out through a maze of ads, a Slim Jim Halloween Havoc sweepstakes featuring Savage and Neon Rage, WCW hotline banners urging fans to call 1-900-909-990 for exclusive backstage shockers. Mail order gear for Sting, Flair, and the NWO, plus subscription cards shouting, "Join the revolution." Even the borders hum with electricity, a company marketing its chaos. By the time the back cover turns, you can almost smell the smoke from Sturgis and hear the NWO theme rumbling through the static. WCW Magazine Issue 20 is both a chronicle and a prophecy, a time capsule from the moment wrestling stopped pretending to be orderly. When every page dared the reader to pick a side, it ends not with a period, but with a warning. The war has only just begun.